Anaïs and Kim, for those that haven't come across you online, introduce yourself and tell our listeners what we're talking about today.
I am Anaïs Webster Mennuti, and I am a PharmD, a pharmacist at a hospital system in Oregon.
My name is Kim Kessler, and I am a writer, editor, storyteller, filmmaker person. I run my own self-employed business helping authors tell awesome stories, which is how Anaïs and I met, actually, as a writer-editor, and now we're writing partners. So, today we're going to talk about our pharmacy documentary that we are in the trenches with right now, and we're really excited to get everybody on board with us to make this thing happen.
When we met up online and I heard about the topic of this, I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk about the crap of pharmacy, but I really want to find out about the documentary. I said, that's really cool. So here we are.
Well, it's interesting, Mike, actually, because this is exactly the point. Exactly what you said. You're like, I don't want to talk about this anymore because everyone in pharmacy knows everything that's been happening and nobody wants to talk about it anymore. Well, they really want people to listen, right? Like they really want, there's so many people like myself who I'm not in a medical background. I just run through my Rite Aid drive-thru and I pick up my pills every month and I have no idea what's going on in pharmacies.
You're exactly right, Kim. When I say I'm sick of it, I guess like you say, I'm sick of talking to my wife about it and other pharmacists about
right?
it and to people on this show about it. You know, I mean, we bitch a little bit just to have fun and to
right.
make it interesting.
You got to air those grievances, right?
You got to air them out, but then we kind of move on to things that are more topical in the business world and so on. You can only talk about something so much, but you're right. If I had an audience that would listen,
right,
then I'll talk forever if it's the
that's
right
it.
people.
Yes,
so you nailed it there.
Yeah, so that's really what we're looking to do, is we want to bring the issues that are going on in retail pharmacy that Anaïs educated me about and our other teammate, Ethan, because we're just, laymen, right? We're just like people who just, go to pharmacies or whatever and don't know anything about it. And so now we're like, oh, we need to get this in front of the masses so that they understand what's actually going on.
Where did this idea start from?
When I left my retail pharmacy job, I was still working at the hospital, and I stayed on with my retail job because I enjoyed who I worked with and I enjoyed the patient and customer interaction. And if you only work a few days a month, you don't deal with any of the issues at all. And so then the COVID vaccines and all of the stuff with COVID hit, and I decided I was done with that moonlighting job. This isn't fun anymore. And so I was complaining to Kim. And I was like, Kim, this is awful.
You guys were buddies.
We were buddies. We're buddies outside of this.
Oh, we're buddies.
Oh.
We're writing partners. Like we write scripts together, like we're trying to get a pilot picked up and we write books and
You said that, but I thought it was because you got together. You were already writing partners and Kim's just bored with you, Anaïs. Every time you go out for coffee, it's like the same damn story. And Kim's saying, let's put some structure to this so I can get this off my back.
Yes.
I'm like, wait, so what's going on? Wait, how does pharmacy work? Wait, what do you do? Like, you mean, and just like mind blowing to learn about everything because I just didn't know.
This wasn't from a one-time gripe session from Anaïs, right? This had been over time that it's building up because you were friends.
Yeah, we're friends. And she's texting me all of the tweets, right? All of the screenshots of all of these tweets from pharmacy Twitter, which apparently is a thing that I didn't know. And I'm just like, wait, what? And it's everywhere. And I just had no idea about the dumpster fire that was retail pharmacy.
And then one day I just texted her I texted her a tweet like I always did. And then I was like, someone needs to do a documentary about this. Were my exact words. And Kim goes, I have friends who can help us with this. And I said, us. Oh, you mean we are doing it. And so that's how I was introduced to Ethan. Kim connected us via email, and Ethan was like, pharmacy. I don't really understand anything about it. Let me look into it.
Yeah, I looked that up. He's a cinematographer.
Yeah, he's amazing. And him and I, we live in the same area and we work together on films and do things together.
You've already worked together with him.
Yes, so I've already worked together with him, and he bleeds documentary. Like, that's like his passion, is to tell the truth, right? To use film as a medium because it's so accessible, and audiences just were clamoring for really great content, and so there's stories that need to be told, and so that's his heart, is to really like tell. And I'm like, oh, we have a meaningful documentary. I have a person who wants to tell meaningful documentary stories, and I just want to tell meaningful stories. I tell fiction, nonfiction, like, I don't care. I just want to be, and I'm all about like the collaborative team effort of like what we're doing.
A month goes by, I hear nothing, and I was like, okay. And then out of the blue, he says, there seems to be a lot of frustration on this subreddit. He was brought into the fold, and he was like, I'm ready to do this documentary. We're doing this.
Not looking at pharmacy, what's the overall market for documentaries? Is it hard to break into not doing them, but into like selling them? Do you then sell it to Hulu or Netflix or something like that? How does that work out?
That's the thing about film in general, right? Is, it takes a lot of money to make a film well, right? Like anybody can make a film for free. It might not be that good, right? Like you want to have good equipment. You want to have enough staff, like enough crew, right? To be able to do all the things.
It's kind of like any schmuck can host a podcast. That's kind of...
I don't let him say that about you, Mike. Don't worry.
Anybody can do it, but it costs money to do a good one.
Yeah, right? You can point and shoot, and you can get editing software and whatever. And so the things that we're really excited about bringing is Ethan's really awesome with a camera. So, and he's really genius about what he does. And Anaïs and I are storytellers, right? Anaïs has the pharmacy like expertise and background and like knows where the issues are, like goes like, oh, we got to go look at this dark corner over here. And then I go, I know what this means. This is what it means to a layman audience person like me. And that's who we really want. That's who we want to get on board. So at this point, for any film, right, you need money, right? You need funding. You need a budget, right? If you look at like how much, industry films are costing, millions of dollars to like do all of the pieces that you need to make something really excellent. And you could make something and then you need to distribute it, right? So like getting a distribution contract can be really tricky because sometimes they're kind of scammy, right? You know what I mean? They're not necessarily a great deal. And so maybe it means you need to get an agent or, representation, a manager. Like there's all these things, right?
It's kind of like you'll see online where they'll say, we'll help you write a book and get it published and all this, but it's like, well, what audience do they have? Who are they? So a lot of people will take you on, but you're looking at the end goal of who's going to see it. That's where you have to start.
Absolutely. We're on a mission.
It's interesting because we had a big shift in our potential ability to distribute this on Friday. So on Friday, we had a big name director who is actually interested in having a meeting with us based on a connection we made from someone we interviewed for the documentary. The director's name is Kirby Dick, and he did the Bleeding Edge documentary. And one of the people in that documentary works at an independent pharmacy who's trying to start a nonprofit. So she works at an independent pharmacy in New York, and she said, Kirby just emailed me out of the blue and asked, hey, do you have any leads? I'm looking for my next project. And that was on Wednesday.
The interwebs of all the connections has just been the most magical part of all of this. What's really interesting when we're looking to distribute this documentary is because streaming services have just totally revolutionized the way that we take in film and take in TV and take in anything. So honestly, it feels like the market for documentary is higher than it's ever been because of streaming services and people's interest in documentary. It's not something you're necessarily going to release in theaters to like go have that kind of a run. But on streaming services, like my sister goes through every true crime documentary there is. Like, it's just like with podcasts, right? People are starving for meaningful content that they want to gobble up. And as soon as you watch one, you're like, I just want more of that. Like, give me more of that. So we feel really optimistic, maybe naively.
Documentaries too. When I go on there to watch a documentary, there might be the world's greatest documentary, but if it's not a topic I'm interested in, it's not just like a mystery or a thriller or action or a comedy. Those things, I don't care so much what the topic is. Like if I'm watching a comedy, I don't care where they work or what profession they're in. If it's funny, it's funny. But with documentaries, a lot of times you really want to watch a topic. So it seems like, having something pharmacy, it's like, yeah, I know there's a lot of other ones, but we're the only pharmacy one kind of thing. I would think it's an easier way in if you have the right interesting story in a certain field.
Well, I think the fact that, right, pharmacy, just like anything medical, right, is so universal, right? Like, it's such a universal thing that, like, millions upon millions of people use a pharmacy, have life-saving medication and life-sustaining medication that they need. And if we go, there's a broken link in the chain, like, you need to figure this out about your pharmacy that you might be going to. There are a lot of, the bleeding edge that we mentioned earlier is about medical devices, right? So and that's why we're really hoping that it's going to end up being a really great fit. And, these things that, how many people have had a hip replacement, right? Like, that's a really common surgery, and watch out. Like, if you have cobalt in those, that's bad news. So you're learning about things that affect everyday people, and that's the power of documentary, is it's telling you something that you might not know that you're interested in it yet, but just watch, right? And you're going to learn about things.
Our other hook is, that's why we picked our title, is because we know it's tongue-in-cheek.
Tell me the title.
Our title is, Would You Like Shots with That?
The crisis behind the pharmacy counter in the U.S.
Again, full title, Would You Like Shots with That? The crisis behind the pharmacy counter in the U.S. We went with that because of the fast foodification of pharmacy. Everyone treats us like McDonald's. So they're like, you roll up to the drive-thru, hey, would you like to supersize that? Would you like fries with that? But just take that into those metrics and goals surrounding immunizations, and then couple that with the public perception.
Yeah, that misunderstanding of what is actually happening behind the counter, what a pharmacist and pharmacy tech's job actually is. They're not just slapping stuff on, slapping a label on a bottle. They're like checking everything, like the real craft.
I can see the artwork now. You're going to have something that looks like a hamburger, maybe like a big pill, and then you're going to have like a French fry thing, but it's going to be like 30 needles sticking out of it instead of French fries, right? Because that's like, would you like fries with that? Would you like shots with that?
Yes,
right.
Yes. Something like that, because it just has to be fun. Like, the world is very bleak and dark, and this topic is a really heavy one. And sometimes the only way to access those types of emotions is through humor. So we really want to make this kind of funny, because you have to.
I don't know a full documentary on pharmacy. I've seen like 20-minute ones on PBS or something like that. I'm not even sure if there's pharmacy ones, but I haven't seen like a Super Size Me kind of documentary on pharmacy.
There is one on Netflix called The Pharmacist. It's all about the opioid epidemic.
That was a little dark, wasn't it?
Well, it is, right? It was, and we got to talk to Dan. We actually interviewed him, and he spoke with us, and we have his full support in what we're doing. We have his stamp of approval. And yeah, I mean, his thing, he was really trying to, he was dealing with the death of his son, and it was all of his personal investigation, like everything he had done to try to bring this, doctor to justice, right? Like, and so it's definitely, and it was really, highlighting and focusing on the opioid epidemic and what's going on. And I think a lot of times, right, that's where people's minds stop about pharmacy. They're like, oh, right, like, people who want their drugs, whatever, and they're not looking at, okay, but what about your insulin, and what about your antidepressants? Like, what about these other things that you need? There's other stuff going on that you need to be aware of.
I think that you said that your next step is probably a trailer for this. Then you get a 2-minute trailer and you bring that to investors. Is that kind of the idea?
Yes, that's right where we are. So we have a trailer. We call it our sizzle reel.
What's it rated?
Not scandalous, Mike.
Not scandalous, just sizzle. Okay. All right.
You know what? I feel like, I wonder how we could do this. It would be really awesome to have Mike watch the sizzle. I wish we would have showed it to you before we got started.
How long is it?
It's 2 minutes.
I'll watch it right now. Can you send it to me?
Yeah, let's do it.
I just watched this 2-minute trailer, and I'm giving Anaïs and Kim my reaction right now. That was fantastic.
Thank you. We're so glad. I'm glad you liked it.
You know, documentaries, you watch them and you get done, you're like, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. Whether it was a hidden camera, the music is perfect. It's kind of perky, but kind of like, can't believe this is going on. And they've got this annoying phone ringing in the background. And then they show this line of like 20 people. And then they show this sign of, there's no pharmacist here. But then the next shot is the same sign with like pencil scratched into it, like F you kind of thing from the customer. Guys, that was really, really good. I didn't know what I was going to see. That was top of the line.
Oh, yay.
And those are people that you interviewed and so on, or is that just dummy stuff?
In the beginning, the first shot in that sizzle reel, that is someone we interviewed. And then when it gets into the Arkansas Board of Pharmacy, their Board of Pharmacy meeting was just on YouTube. So we just took it off YouTube. And then we used footage from TikTok videos. So just B-roll that was out in the world that we were able to use, plus the interviews that we've done.
Every person that is talking to us directly, like, is someone that we talk to. We've spoken with, since January, we've spoken with over 40 different people, you know, pharmacists, pharmacy techs, patient advocates, patients themselves. Like, we've done a ton of pre-interviews that have helped us build sort of the story. Like, we have a really clear vision for what the story that we're telling. And we just, now it's kind of a matter of going in and capturing all of the real footage in the wild so we can really make it into a film.
Did you do long interviews, or did you say, hey, we're doing this trailer, can you give us 5 minutes?
No, we talked to people for like an hour, and then those are like just cut down.
So you already have the footage that you need, basically, for the interviews.
Right. There are certain people, like key players in the story, that we want to go, we're going to fly to them, we want to be with them, we want them to show us the places and how things worked and talk to them in person. People are really used to seeing Zoom footage now, so there's certainly going to be some in it. But yeah, when you're making a documentary, pre-production is one of the most important parts of creating any film project.
Pre-production meaning getting the interviews and all that kind of stuff.
Pre-production is everything you do before you hit action. Right? So it's going to be everything that you do. So it's, you know, it might be finding locations, it might be finding funding, it might be writing a script, it might be revising, you know, all those things that you do before you're actually on set with the like black and white clacker thingy, you know, that everybody thinks of. That's production.
The trailer is still pre-production.
Yes, the trailer is still pre-production at this point because we're just using it off of pre-production footage. But what we love is we're like, you can see there's a story here, right? Like, there's a story here, and there's so much more of a story.
What's the last line they use?
Wait till you hear about the rodents.
Yeah, the last line of the trailer. They get done showing these people basically dying, the techs, and then the lady says, wait till I tell you about the rodents.
Yep.
That was fantastic.
You don't expect to hear that in a Zoom interview?
What are the rules for documentaries as far as, do you need permission from people to put it in?
We've done some research into what those laws are, and we're working with a law firm to help us along this process. And so we have consent forms. So we have a release waiver to get permission from all of the people we've interviewed directly. And then for documentaries, there is I guess it's like an act or a law of some sort called fair use. So you are allowed to use certain footage without having to get permission for the purposes of a documentary.
You can probably use the board meeting because that's like not copyright information and it was a public forum, blah, blah, blah. If there's a Karen on, I call it Tic Tac. I know it's TikTok, but I call it Tic Tac just to get my kids. It's funny because I put little segments of this podcast on my TikTok channel, the Biz of Farm Pod, and my kids see it all on their FYP page. You know, it's like all on their front page and they see me constantly. But then I come in and I call it Tic Tac just to kind of like mess with them. But if you've got like a Karen in the pharmacy on TikTok, can you use that?
So there's a certain amount of fair use that you can use from if someone's posting something online. And you notice we had several TikTok videos in, but we've credited them, we've shown the source of where they come from, and so you know you can find their channel at whoever, and yeah, at that point there is a certain amount of fair use for social media, which means you should be really careful about what you put on social media.
So we had asked our attorney, and she was like, everything we have shown her so far and we had talked about using, she said was fine. We didn't really broach the subject of how long because we knew everything was going to be short.
Do you need any permission from the Karen, or that's been published too?
It's state by state. So with that, with recording laws, it depends if it's a one consent or a two consent state. Some states you can record another person. A lot of times they're talking about audio, but you can record someone as long as you, the recorder, are consenting to it. Some states, you have to get permission from the Karen before you record them.
I'm going to say you can use it because there's a lot of documentaries that have pictures of people in their worst moments, you know, like really angry and this and that. They obviously don't get permission for all of that, or else the documentary wouldn't be any fun to watch if you're not, you know, kind of pissing somebody off. So it must be legal.
And I think that's where fair use comes in, because they do want people to be able to document things like that. So
you're right. Because what if everything had to be whitewashed? Then it's like, how exciting is that to watch anything?
Well, and it's not the truth, right? And like you're saying, when it comes to reporting, right, when it comes to journalism, you know, things like that, you know, which, you know, we're kind of falling somewhere in there, but I would say we're probably a little more biased than the regular journalist, but we do still really, you know, we're here to really tell the whole truth.
Well, there's a lot of journalism that, I mean, you think of 2020 and 60 Minutes and stuff. They obviously have a slant. They're not going in to discover something. They're going in to stick the microphone into someone's face and,
yes,
you know, get that.
We have a hunch of how this is going to go.
Yes,
so,
yes.
You know, right? Yeah.
That's why one of the reasons I recommend pharmacists get a hold of their news once in a while so that you can say, hey, if you ever need someone to talk about anything in the news, let me know. Get a few reporters on your side, because inevitably you get some young reporter every 3 or 4 years who says they're going to like reveal to the world that there's like different pricing in pharmacy, or, you know, something, or they're going to reveal to the world that this pharmacy, you know, charged 10 more cents to this than to somebody else, kind of thing. And then they shove the microphone in your face. So it doesn't hurt to have those relationships ahead of time. So when they say, where are you going with this negative story? It's like, oh, I'm going to go see Mike. It's like, don't go see him. He helps us once in a while, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the documentary, boy, I forget who said this. I'm going to say it was Mark Twain, because none of my listeners know the difference anyway. So I'm just going to say the great Mark Twain said that to do a long speech or something is easy. To make it, you know, a tenth of that is really hard.
Oh, yeah. Right. It takes longer to write a short letter than it does to write a long letter.
You got it. You got it. So, Kim, that writing, and Anaïs, that writing was superb. I don't think most people understand. I, of course, have an eye for the art. I don't think most people understand. A trailer's tougher than a 60-minute documentary almost. You got to tell the story.
Yes,
so who writes that? You two write it?
It's really hard.
All three of us did.
And do you write that before and almost have like a storyboard where you say, we're going to put 3 people in here and then we're going to talk for a bit, then we're going to have a long shot? Did you know, or how does that work out?
Honestly, a lot of it was by feel. And I know that's kind of a woo-woo answer, but we got a lot of footage. And then in general, we were kind of putting the broad brushstrokes. Like, it looks like for the beginning of our trailer, we're going to really showcase the issue in terms of like what's a really like gut punch type of opening. And then we knew we wanted to also close with something really dramatic. So both the nothing will change until fatal mistakes are made, and then the rodents. And kind of with those parameters, these things are floating around in our minds. We're kind of adding clips here and there. And then one day Ethan was just playing around with it, and he said, you know what, I'm going to try to do the first rough draft of the trailer. And so that became our scaffolding. Once he was like, I'm just going to throw some stuff in there, that's when we really crafted it. Ooh, what if we have a phone ringing throughout? How funny would that be?
In the old days, back until 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you'd actually physically have to like cut film, physically cut it and then tape it back together and so on. Now you can, like you say, you can rough draft this together and get a feel for it.
What's happening is when we're interviewing people, the story is always in our mind, always about how is this going to translate to a broad audience? How is this going to, because we need to know, like, oh my God, this is a person, we have to fly and see them in person. Like, we have to. Or, okay, this was interesting and maybe they connected us with someone else, but this may or may not actually make it in to the documentary. But, you're just gathering and you're just perceiving and processing all of this information, and certain things are sticking out to us as we're taking it in, and we're like, that's important. And then also Anaïs has been, capturing tweets and TikToks, and we have a document called Linky Links, and all the links of all of the stuff that Anaïs has found online that relates to pharmacy and this retail nightmare. And so, scouring those for this is the most compelling, this is going to, help demonstrate this specific point that we're trying to make. And then, kind of gathering those things, and then Ethan goes, okay, let me take a crack at it. And the amazing thing about storytelling is that it is innate in each human being, right? It is a way that we communicate. And when you are a writer or an editor or a filmmaker or any person who's really actively working in storytelling, you learn to name these different things, right? We put names on them so that we know we can communicate with one another, but they're things that the audience, whether they know it or not, already knows inherently, because it's literally the way our brains are wired, and it's the way that we have survived as a species, right? We tell stories so that we pass on information so that people, survive to make more people and pass on more information. Like, storytelling is our amazing, human technology that we use, right? So we're tapping into those things that help people make connections and they recognize a pattern, and they understand, oh, this might have been a bunch of little clips together, but when I watch it in its entirety, at the end, I go, oh my God, I understand what they're trying to tell me. And, so that's the stuff that we're doing, right?
Going along with that, the naming of the innate sense of story into something that's structured is really helpful for keeping the global, the big story in our heads, because this weekend when we were working on that grant application and we did put together kind of the storyboard, if you will, for that committee, we were like, okay, so we know that in the first act we have to establish, okay, it seems like we have patients and customers versus pharmacy staff. And we are kind of pitting these two groups to get against one another because that's what the public perception is. And then from there, we start to chip away at that public perception and introduce some basic education about what's going on behind the counter before pivoting into who we're following and our main characters and following their journey through kind of the getting to know them, the really dark night of the soul, emotional core that you hit towards 3/4 into a movie where you're like, wow, I've gotten to know you. And this is a really tricky situation that you're in, and really showing the almost hopelessness, the villain's too big, they're never going to make it. And then coming out of that in your third act and being like, but there is hope. We took you through the ringer, we took you to the bottom, and now there's actually hope.
UB40, you know that group? They've got this song that I love. It's called I think it's Puddle at My Feet, and I love it. Except, stories, the songs are supposed to have a troubled first verse, a troubled second verse, and then kind of the refrain, and then at the end it sort of wraps up a little bit. But this one, the first verse was a problem, and the resolution was almost coming in the second verse already before the refrain even came. It just didn't sit right with me. So a good storyteller almost is like filling in the holes that they know that we humans need.
That's absolutely what it's all about, is understanding what does, what you want someone to understand. But it's like a great teacher, right? You're like, I need you to understand this concept, but I can't just tell you that whole concept and you're going to go right over your head and you're not going to care about it. You're going to be bored and you're not going to hear me. So rather than just tell you the thing, I'm going to give you a piece at a time linearly. I'm going to drip it to you. I'm going to give you this. I'm going to help you care about this person. I'm going to give you some conflict and help you care a little bit more. And we build it so that by the end, you have a full understanding. You've been able to, piece it together bit by bit and take it in and process it and see the big picture. And so a story becomes, greater than the sum of its parts, right? So it becomes, there's a greater meaning that we get from it. And this is true of any story. And this is particularly why Ethan is so passionate about documentary, because it's real life, right? So, I'm really passionate about fiction because I'm going to write you a story that will tell you a truth about real life, and I get to have all my creative control. And Ethan loves to capture the real life of what's happening. Like, these are people's lives; they're out there right now, and and this is what's going on, and you just don't know. So we want to educate you and communicate what's really going on, so that you actually have free will. You actually have a choice to decide if you want to, I'm going to stop going to my, chain pharmacy. I'm going to go support the independent, or if I can, if my, not everybody has that option, but we just don't even know what needs to happen if people aren't advocating and educating.
But you still have to make sure the emotional signal is clear. So one thing that we were talking about yesterday, actually, was I had written a line of text, and Kim was like, that sentence is factually correct. Nothing is wrong with that sentence, but you're not hitting the emotional notes. You're just telling them facts. And so it's really just making sure that you are appealing to your audience in a way that hits them in an emotional core, which is why sometimes reading articles about what's going on in pharmacy doesn't really hit the same as really watching a story about it.
Right. You watch that one TikTok with that person who's on the floor on the phone, and they're just like absolutely feeling insane with probably whatever doctor's office they're trying to talk to, and just going, or insurance company, right? And we're just like, just my whole nervous system just lights up, because I know what it's like to be that frustrated, right? I've never worked in a pharmacy, but I know what it's like to be that frustrated. And it just connects you as humans.
Let's say a story has like 30 parts to it. That last part, it's almost like the documentaries, the good documentaries, they almost leave you at like 29. And the 30th part is then the next step that the viewer does. I think to like some of these documentaries, my daughters are vegans and they make me watch these things. They strap me down.
You watched all the food ones, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I watch, Knives Over Forks and Super Size Me and all this stuff. I know that wasn't vegan, and how terrible the free market is for promoting fast food. So, like, I'll be out to eat with my wife for lunch at McDonald's while I'm shoving a Big Mac in my face and 10 fries, and I'll be telling her how great those documentaries were. So they don't work on me, but at least I think about that 30th step,
Right, you're more aware than you were before, and then you decide, I don't care. I want what I want. I'm a red-blooded American, and I'm going to eat my beef, and that's going to happen, right?
Yes.
What's the worst emotion you've had so far? Is there any negativity at all? I mean, has there been hopelessness because you couldn't get enough people to respond? I mean, what's the most negative emotion so far?
Limited time and limited resources.
My most negative emotion is probably frustration, just because it's very difficult to do a project of this scale with limited time and limited resources. We all have day jobs, families, and so it's just like, if I could only commit to this full time, then we would be able to just like run with this, but I still have to go to work tomorrow, so.
Yeah, that's really been it. It's just been knowing how important it is, knowing how powerful it is, and how passionate we are to tell the story, and how passionate all of the people that we've spoken with are to tell the truth and get the story out so that other people know what's going on. And then, being limited on how much time we can really invest in it on a weekly, monthly basis, because, we have other clients, gigs, Anaïs has, the hospital to go to, and we just want to be doing this, right? We just want to be doing this.
Yeah, we had a big heart-to-heart not too long ago about this, when it was really getting down to like that brass tacks, like, okay, we are running out of resources for Kim and Ethan because they are both it's burnout and they're both independent contractors, so any time spent on this project is time they're not with a client. And so we had been, in the first few months after we started doing this, we were on calls almost every single day. It was a fire hose.
It's a fire hose. People were so excited to tell us their stories, and it was amazing.
It was amazing, but then both Kim and Ethan are like, we're running out of resources for our own personal lives. And so, like, we need to eat. We have to pay the mortgage. And I was just like, had that moment of like, I know they both really want to do this project. And it's just, it makes me very sad because I'm like, they both want to do it, but I'm not going to stand in the way of them paying their mortgage, feeding their family.
Not counting the marketing and the red carpets and the interviews and all that. How far do you feel you're done with this project now that you've had a lot of the interviews, you've got the trailer done? Do you feel you're 25% done?
It's so interesting in terms of, I feel like we have a really good handle on the content as far as like knowing the kind of footage we want to go capture, the kind of people we want to talk to, because we have gathered a lot of information. And we have a really good understanding of what we need to communicate to our audience in the final product. So I feel really good about that. Now it's just a matter, it feels like it's a lot of execution, right? We need to be going out and we need to get all the information to fill all of those holes, right? Get the footage, get the sources. There's probably, there's a certain amount of, in documentaries, there might be something you need to explain. And so you'll make a little animated explainer video that like with graphs and points and, so there's those things that need to be put together and made. But I feel really good about knowing what we're doing and how we're, what we're trying to do. It's a matter of getting the resources so we can take the flights, so we can hire the local crew, so that we can capture the footage, and so that we can, and getting access to locations, so we can get all of the footage that we want to get. So there's all of production still needs to happen, which what's interesting about this project, and I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about other documentaries that. Lots of times it can take years, right? It can take years to put a documentary together. And so what's interesting is it feels like everything that we're trying to capture can be captured. Like it's people talking about the past, and it's scenes that we can go be on site, get their stuff, but it's not really like we don't necessarily have to follow, like a campaign, right? That's going to take a certain number of months and time. You know what I mean? So it feels like the history of a thing, so that we can change what's going to happen. And we would like to do that sooner rather than later, rather than like we're going to, capture someone's voyage around, around the ocean or whatever, which you're like, you're just here for all of the time to do that. And so it does have, so it feels like it can go faster if we have the resources, right? That's how it feels to me.
If you need somebody to tell you how things should be done in a pharmacy, I could be that person. And then you could say, all right, now everybody, you've seen Mike do it. Now do the opposite. And then you can put like a left and right screen with a big X through me or something, and then put the green check mark on the right side, with an animated person. What is your big speed bump? Now you have the trailer. Are you trying to get funding from anybody? And you need that funding then to get the final product. And then when the final product comes in, you need someone to pick that up. Where are you in the business part of that?
The money. So right after this podcast airs, we are going to start our first crowdfunding campaign. Our slogan was put your money where you can't put your mouth, because a lot of people are so scared of retaliation, they don't want to talk to us. Fine. That's okay. No harm, no foul. Give us 2 hours of your time. So the amount of money you would make in 2 hours, just contribute that to this documentary, and we will find someone who can tell your story.
The typical person, they'll see the trailer, and then at the end you'll have a QR code or something, and then they'll go on their phone, and then they'll go to a site or something, and then they'll have the opportunity to donate to this. How does that work out, actually?
Yeah, so for film, there is a platform called Seed and Spark. It's kind of like Kickstarter, but for film specifically. So essentially what we are planning on doing is we have built up some community on Twitter. So we're going to basically tweet out our Seed and Spark and let people know we've started fundraising. But we also have a pretty lengthy list of people we've either talked to or we know who are more influencers than we are with bigger platforms. For example, like the cynical pharmacist or the accidental pharmacist. We've talked to them, and so they have 100,000 people plus who follow them to be like, here you go. Show this to your audience. They're pharmacy. This whole campaign is marketing to pharmacy staff. So they get it. And we just need to have those voices amplify us so that they watch that trailer and then go, man, I'm ready. We're going to contribute. This is a community documentary. We're all doing this documentary.
You mentioned the crowdsourcing. Now, I ain't no genius, ladies, but I'm thinking you've got this excellent trailer. I'm imagining that's somehow going to come out with your notice that we want to raise some funds, right? Those are going to be kind of together, right?
Yeah, so they will be. So when people either look at our social media post or when they listen to this podcast, they will be able to, so for example, here, look at the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our Seed and Spark page. If you click on that, it'll be the main video on that page and you can watch it and then just donate from that page. So how people will get access to that video is through our Seed and Spark. So we might have either a still shot of it or like maybe the first couple seconds to really draw people in. Ooh, that's intriguing. I want to watch it. But in order to watch it, we want it to be from our fundraising page so that you have the impulse to donate and contribute right away.
All links to watch the trailer will take you to Seed and Spark. You watch the film, you watch the trailer there, and then you'll be right there so that you can donate your 2 hours.
2 hours money worth of your time.
Yes, 2 hours money worth of your time.
This is, for your industry, right? This is for your profession. This is for, making things better for you and for your patients.
The trailer really right now is really for pharmacists.
It absolutely is.
When this is done, you might do a different trailer for the streaming executives or for the consumers. It might
Absolutely.
be different than this. This is more to say we understand pharmacists and we're here and let's raise this.
And this message that's in the trailer will be in the film. It's just not the only message that will be in the film because the consumer needs to know, okay, and now what do I do, right? So we have to be able to show, why is it so jacked up the way that it is, and what do we do about it? So those parts are coming in the main film. But
when they're on this and give money, I'm not implying you do this. I'm just wondering, do they say, we'll let you know of the premiere night? Do they become part of anything when they give?
So we want whoever is giving to feel like they are a part of this documentary. It is a community documentary, which is why we want the pharmacy community to fund it. So we really the perk they get is a documentary.
That's number one. Delivery number one is that we're gonna.
I think that's a good answer, Anaïs, because it's kind of like, do you guys know what bazooka gum is?
Yes.
When I was a kid, you would collect bazooka comics that came in the bazooka bubble gum, and then you'd send in 100 of these things and you'd get live jumping beans or something like that. But sometimes you can cheapen stuff. What if I bought my wife's engagement ring? What if she found out I bought that with bazooka comics? So this too, it's if you start giving giveaways, it's almost like the project itself is not as important. It's no, you give because this is important. You're not going to get any gimmicks. This is just important.
And I think, for one, we don't have a budget to do giveaways. If we had a budget to do giveaways, we would just go fund the film. And also, it is about, the main purpose obviously is to make the documentary. But one thing that they will be a part of is seeing the progress. This might take us a year or two to make, right? But there's going to be a lot of stuff that happens between now and then. And if you want to stay in it and stay, be a part of it and be, there's going to be multiple opportunities to give. So even if you can't give on this first one, we're breaking it down sort of by segments. Our first one is the West Coast tour. We're going to try, map out okay, planes, trains, automobiles, what do we got to do to try to make it and do our West Coast tour. One of our interviewees is going to hook us up with some good flights, so there's things like that. So people will definitely have a chance to be a part of hey, we're going to be in this city on these days, come hang out, let's talk, here's behind the scenes footage, here's some, just this is where the project is at, and giving those updates and letting people know that this is what we learned, and really just because it's not just about the documentary, it's about making actual change in the world of pharmacy, right? So if it's hey, this is the thing we learned about, take this back to your associations or whatever, you know what I mean? We don't even know. I don't know what all of that's going to be, but I just know that when we're all in, right? We're all in, and we're going to be bringing our best effort and bringing the best content. And really infusing some life and some hope back into a community that's been working so hard and just so downtrodden that it's like, okay, let's all band together and do a thing, So, so we'll figure out what all of that is.
I was talking to somebody who was trying to make change in the industry, and we actually got to the point where I finally understood that one of the things with the upper echelon people in the chains and stuff who ultimately will be making this change was embarrassment. You were embarrassing them or embarrassing their kids to say, my father or mother is part of that operation that has rodents in their place, that kind of thing. I didn't see any of this on the trailer, but is any of this going to be where you find CEO so-and-so at a pharmacy function and you've got a mic in his face and he says no comment, where you go to a dinner undercover? I didn't see any of this, but are you attacking it all? I'm guessing you're not, but are you going to?
Funny you should say going undercover. We did say, because we were technically the partners and CEOs of our own little independent business, Shots with That LLC, we went to an executive summit and we listened to people at the higher echelons of some of these companies talk, and we took some notes. As spies.
And you got in just because you were a company? They didn't do any background check?
No. We paid the entry fee, and it was all virtual, so it made it easy.
No, they don't care.
No, they didn't care.
Someone's not going to say anything too much when they're on there.
No, they're not.
But it was very eye-opening, though, the things that we heard just from listening in. Like, the level of disconnect that they have with their front line. Like, and it's just that gap in understanding between the haves and the have-nots, right? Like, and it's really interesting. I think that's, it's almost becomes a class issue, right? Like, when you have the CEOs at the top, you have the pharmacists, and then you have, your patients. And so they're like, pharmacists shouldn't complain about their jobs because they're making X number of dollars, They're seeing them as a different class of person, right? And they're offended that someone would dare complain about their job. And so, it's just, again, this is part of what the lines of communication that we're trying to clear up in the film, because it's all a big misunderstanding. It's all a big, this is my naiveness. I cannot imagine that the people that are, trying to revolutionize healthcare, right? Walgreens, whatever, I don't think they're evil people, right? I mean, money hungry, maybe?
Kim, they don't give a crap. I have no dog in this fight. I'm an independent pharmacy owner. I mean, through vertical integration, I deal with these people because they're PBMs and stuff. But as far as the pharmacies go, I don't have really a dog in that fight with a retail chain. They don't care. They know. They're burning people out. People that have to pay off student loans and all this kind of stuff. That's why this one person I was talking to said, how can you affect these people? And maybe it's embarrassment. Maybe it's somehow when they're on their yachts, they're embarrassed, or their golf game, or how do you affect those people? Because they don't really care. I think it's embarrassment. And the rodents do a great job of it.
The rodents do it. Yes, it does. And also embarrassment in their pocketbook. They're offering $100,000 sign-on bonuses that pharmacists aren't taking. If you have no pharmacist to open the store, eventually that's a problem.
What's going to be really cool for this for you?
I can say for me, this is one story that we want to tell. So, I think beyond, the change that's going to happen to pharmacy, we just want to tell stories, right? The thing is this is one issue that we are passionate about, and we are going to do our damnedest to tell the best story that we can, and it will have whatever effect it's going to have. That 30th step of the film is in the hands of the audience, right? At some point, the story is theirs and they are going to do what they want. But I want to break in to the industry. I have stories to tell. We have things to do. And we know what we're doing. We just need access. Just let us in. We are knocking on the door, and I want in.
So this becomes really popular. Then you can say, hey, yeah, we did the Would You Like Shots with this. And then you can do the next one. And maybe funding is easier, that kind of stuff. How about you, Anaïs?
We are on the exact same page. This is why we have been writing partners for the last few years, because we want into this industry. We have got great stories to tell. And it's so fun. Like, it's just a pleasure to tell these stories and just have a chance to be creative all of the time. It's a blast.
Kim, you like fiction more, though. Is this going to pull you away from the fiction, or can you just lie in these documentaries and that's going to be your fiction? I'm just asking.
I don't think it'll take away from the fiction, because like we actually are concurrently writing a series of pirate novels about female pirates.
And you have more time to invest in the things that you're trying to build, right? It gives you and it gives you contacts, connections. You know, I didn't go to film school, right? But it's like, just let me in the room and let me show you, right? Let me show you what I can do.
No fame at all. Don't care about that.
I don't want to be famous at all.
Even in the industry.
Known is one thing, famous is another. If people want to give me jobs because they know I'm good, that's fine.
The stories are what matter, and it's connecting with the audience is what matters. Like, that's what we're here to do. And anything, whether it's, you know, Academy Award nominations, like, they're all tools. So someone's like, oh, that was really good. I haven't watched that yet. We should watch it. Like, if it just gets more people to take in the story, I'm all for it.
Well, ladies, I usually have like an official goodbye after these things, but I'm not even going to take the time to do that. I'm just going to say, listeners, right now when this ends, go watch this trailer, donate to this cause.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much.